One of the many amazing tools built into the Pocket 3 is the ability to create time lapses or motion lapses. But, if the settings aren't set up correctly, well, it's gonna look a little bit shit.
Mad savage in me back and I'm back and it happening, ready to blow. I remember doing.
Right, so first things first, you're going to need some tools to make this magic work, to make this magic come together, to make this magic happen. And those tools are some tripod legs. Now, these ones come in the creator combo with the Pocket 3, but if you don't have the creator combo, you could just literally search for tripod legs on, I don't know, Amazon, and 1,000,001 options will come up. You could use a selfie stick tripod, which is what I use pretty much most of the time. And yeah, this one's from Insta360. I'll link it down below, and it works the same way as the mini tripod, apart from it's not mini and it extends out as a tripod. The next tool in the toolbox you will need in the toolbox is ND filters. You will not be able to create a time lapse or motion lapse with motion blur during the day if you do not have ND filters. Now, if you're unsure of the whole ND filter side of things, which ones to get, where to use them, when to use them, I've got a whole video going through ND filters with the Pocket 3, which I'll link down below, but you will need them. You will need them. I'm going to show you examples throughout this video why you will need them, but if I haven't said already, you will need them. And of course, you will need the Pocket 3 with the 1/4" screw hole adapter attached to at the bottom for you to be able to screw onto the mini tripod or screw onto the selfie stick tripod. So you've got all your tools ready and waiting to use, and you're wondering, what is the difference between a time lapse and a motion lapse? Well, they're basically the same thing, apart from a motion lapse moves and a time lapse stays still. So if you set up a time lapse, you would just set up the camera, let's say facing forward, and it would just do a time lapse of it facing forward. If you set up a motion lapse, you could set the gimbal to start from the left and slowly move to the right, which would do the same thing as a time lapse, apart from it's moving, which is why it's a motion lapse. Right, so how do you access the time lapse and motion lapse feature, and how the hell do you set it all up? Well, when you're on the preview screen, press the shooter modes button in the bottom left, swipe to the right all the way at the end, you'll see motion lapse. Press on that and you'll be taken to this screen. And here is where you're going to set everything up. So first things first, swipe from the bottom to the top and choose whether you want motion lapse or time lapse by simply swiping across. Today I'm going to focus on motion lapse just so I can show you the setup of the motion, but the overall settings will be the same for a time lapse as well. The only difference would be you wouldn't be setting up any motion. So under motion lapse, you can see you've got custom motion, or if you swipe across, you've got right to left and left to right. And this is simply the motion of the gimbal head when it's shooting. And left to right and right to left, pretty self-explanatory. Or custom motion is where you'll be able to set up what it does. So instead of it doing a left to right movement, it might do left to right and then right to left again, or left to right, but when it goes to right, it might go slightly up to the sky. And to make that happen and work, you need to decide that movement and how much movement you want, because you need to set your waypoints. You can see in the top left, you've got the waypoint button. If you press on that, you've got the option for 2, 3, or 4 waypoints. And waypoints basically means what movement do you want to happen between those points. So like I just said, if you wanted it to do a right to left and then a left to right movement again, you're going to need more than 2 waypoints. So let's say 4 waypoints. If you wanted it to do a movement where it's a right to left movement, but instead of it just going to left, it goes like up to the sky, 2 will be fine. But you wouldn't be able to kind of get that to work if you chose like the preset of left to right, because it just goes left to right. It doesn't go up. So if you wanted it to go up, you would still need 2 waypoints, but you would be able to custom the movement, which is why it's on custom movement. So today we'll keep it on 2 for this example. And then in the top right, you've got your resolution and frame rate. So whack it all the way up to 4K because you want the best quality, and choose your frame rate from 25 or 30. I am going to keep it at 25 today. Go back, and then if you swipe up again, again, you'll be taken to interval and duration. Now, interval is going to play a massive part in the end result of the video. And the simple way to think about interval is look at the scene in front of you of what you're planning to shoot. And the faster the scene is changing, the shorter the interval should be. The slower the scene is changing, the longer the interval should be. So for like moving cars and people, which the scene is changing quite fast, you're going to want a shorter interval. So let's say 2 seconds. If you were shooting clouds in the sky, that's not changing as fast as, let's say, traffic and people. So you're going to want a longer interval of, let's say, maybe 4 or 5 seconds. If you were shooting a sunrise or a sunset where the scene is obviously not changing as much as even clouds in the sky, then you're going to want an even longer interval, and that could be like 20 seconds. So you need to really look at how fast the scene is changing in front of you. But if you were doing moving cars and people, then 2 seconds is going to be the sweet spot of where you want to set your interval to be. And then under that, you've got duration. Now, don't get this confused because where you can swipe across at the bottom, that's not you setting the duration of the video. That is simply you setting how long it's going to take to shoot. If you see in the little box in the white writing where it says video duration and then it has the number, that is your final video. So that is the number you're going to be looking at for your final video. That's what you're going to need to decide how long you want the final video result to be, right? The number at the bottom that you're sliding across is how long it's going to take to shoot. So you can see at the moment we've got it on 10 minutes and our final video will be 12 seconds. If you wanted it longer than that, then swipe over to, let's say, 20 minutes. You can see that our video duration has doubled to 24 seconds. If you still wanted it longer, swipe across to 30 and it goes up to 36 seconds. So make sure you don't get confused, because if you're selecting 30 minutes, don't think that that's going to give you a 30-minute video. That's how long it's going to take to shoot the video. Your final video is that little number where it says video duration. So today we'll keep it on 10 minutes. And that's your interval and duration set up. Now swipe down and go back to the preview screen. You can see in the top left, you've got your duration up. You've got the duration option up there as well. So if you didn't want to go back to that menu and then swipe up again to get to that, and you wanted to change it, you could just press that little box and it would take you to the interval and duration settings menu. And yeah, that's pretty much that set up. Now we need to set up our pro settings. So to access this, swipe from the right to the left and make sure pro is selected. Now you don't want anything in this menu system set to auto. No. You don't want anything set to auto. Everything needs to be adjusted manually and locked in, because if you set it to auto, what's going to happen is as the scene changes whilst it's recording, like it's just going to change and it's just not going to look good. You want it to be continuous through the video, so don't have anything on auto. So first things first, let's set the white balance. So if you're unsure of what to set the white balance at, just press auto white balance, hold the pocket free up to where you're planning to shoot, and you'll see the number starts to change. When it starts to slow down and essentially stop, lock that number in place by pressing confirm. By pressing manual and then confirm. So don't just press confirm, press manual and then confirm. If you press confirm whilst it's on auto, it will still be on auto. So yeah, make sure you press manual and it will lock it in place and the number won't move again once you've pressed confirm. Then we're going to set our shutter speed and ISO. So if you're shooting during the day, you're going to pretty much want your ISO set to the lowest number, which is 50. If you're shooting at night, then yeah, you're going to want to set it higher. But today, first of all, we're going to keep it set to a day setting. So we'll keep it at 50. Now, this next setting, the shutter speed, is going to play one of the biggest roles in making the end result look choppy or not choppy, have motion blur or not have motion blur. Now, you need to set this correctly, and this is where your ND filters is going to come into it, because you'll see when you're shooting during the day and you set the shutter speed to what I tell you to set it at, it's just going to look a little bit white and a little bit bright. So how and what do you set your shutter speed to? Well, let me show you some examples of what not to set it at and what to set it at. Here we are with the shutter speed set to 1/50, and you can see things are looking very sharp and jittery. No motion blur from the moving cars. Now you might think 1/50 is set correctly, seeing as our frame rate is set to 25, but remember, we're not creating a normal video, so we need to be slowing the shutter speed down even more. And here I have slowed it down even more to 1/25, this time with ND16, but it's still looking very sharp and jittery. And if I slow it down even more to 1/10, this time with ND64, there's a little bit of motion blur going on, but still not really what we're looking for. So let's slow it down even more to ½ a second, this time with ND 128, and you can see we've now got that motion blur from the moving cars, and this clip is definitely usable. But if you wanted to go even more, you could slow it down to 1 second, this time ND 256 is on the lens, and you've got that crazy motion blur from the moving cars. Now you will need ND filters, like I keep saying, because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. It's going to look very bright, very white, very overexposed. Now, one time you won't need to use ND filters is if you're shooting at night. Now, here I've set the shutter speed to 1/50, again, as I did during the day, and you can see it's just very sharp and jittery. At night, the effect we're trying to create from the cars is those nice light trails as they go past. Here I've slowed it down to 1/25, and again, we're not really getting that. It's still just sharp and jittery. So let's slow it down to ½ a second, and bingo, look at that. You've got those light trails coming from the cars, which again, this clip is definitely usable. But if we wanted to go even more crazy, we could slow it down to 1 second, and then you've got those crazy light trails. So you can see the theme here. We need to set the shutter speed to a lower number to create that motion blur from the moving cars and people. So you can see the shutter speed plays a massive factor in how the end result is going to look. Do you want motion blur, or do you want it to look choppy? I think I know the answer to that. So just make sure your shutter speed is set up correctly, because as you saw, it is literally one of the key factors in making the end result look nice and magical and dreamy. Right, so we've set up all of the settings. It's now time to set up the motion. So you can see on the preview screen, you've got this plus button in the middle, and in the top right, you've got 1 and 2. That's our waypoints. So remember, I set the waypoints to 2 earlier. If we had set it to 3, it would be 1, 2, 3. If we had set it to 4, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this, we've kept it at 2 for now. And essentially, you need to just set the pocket 3 down, wherever it is you're planning to shoot. So this is where you would attach it to your tripod legs or your selfie stick tripod, set it down, and yeah, now we're going to set the gimbal head to the start location. Now you can do this by using the joystick, or you can use your fingers to use your hands. Wait, it sounds weird when I say use your fingers, but we are using our fingers. Use your hands. This is you can use the joystick, or you can move the gimbal head yourself with your hands and fingers. But I have found that sometimes when you try to move it with your hands, if you rotated it down or up, it doesn't like it sometimes, and it might just revert it back to the middle. So I found my tip for you is use the joystick, because it goes wherever you move it to, as when you move it manually, it sometimes goes a little bit funny. So yeah, you need to set it to the start point. When you've got it at the start point of where you want it to start, you need to press on the plus button in the middle, and you'll see that number 1 turns blue. That's your first point locked in. You now need to move the camera to where you want the video to end. So this is where literally, like I said, the video will end. So we've only got 2 waypoints. So if I move it to the right a bit and move the gimbal head facing upwards a little bit, that's going to be the end location. So throughout the whole video, it's going to slowly move like you just saw in the examples, it's going to slowly move based on this movement. So when you're happy with the final position, press the plus button again, and you'll see number 2 goes blue, and the plus turns to a blue tick. That's your waypoints set in place. And like I said, if you had 3 waypoints, you would do another movement and press the plus button. And then if you had 4, again, same thing, but obviously today we're focusing on just 2. Now you can see in the middle to the right, you've got this little play button. That essentially, if you press that, is allowing you to preview how it's going to look. It's going to do it very fast, but it will do a preview of the movement. So you can actually get a vision of how that movement is. Now, if you didn't like what you saw and you wanted to change it, you can see you've got a cross button in the top right. If you press that, that's literally going to delete the previous waypoint. So in this case, it will be number 2. So if we press that, it deletes number 2. So you can now set number 2 again. If you wanted to redo the whole thing, then you press it again and it would delete number 1. So again, if you had 4 waypoints, 3 waypoints, whatever, you're just pressing the delete button and it will just keep deleting it until it's all deleted if that's what you want. But yeah, that is literally how you're setting up your movement for the motion lapse. And when you're ready and everything is locked in place with your movement, all you've got to do is press record. A couple of tips when shooting a motion lapse or time lapse is make sure that the Pocket 3 has enough battery in it before you start to shoot, especially if you're doing a longer video, because if you, let's say, set it to 30 minutes plus or whatever and you don't have enough battery and it cuts out halfway through, well, that is slightly annoying and you're going to have to set everything up again and charge it and record, whatever. So just make sure from the get-go it's either plugged in to, let's say, a power bank, or you've got enough charge in it whilst you're shooting, and make sure it's not a windy day, especially when it's set on a tripod or the selfie stick tripod, because you don't want the tripod to fall over or the selfie stick to fall over because of the wind. It's again just going to slow things down and you're going to have to redo everything and it might look a little bit wobbly. Well, it will look wobbly if it's fallen over, and of course make sure it's not raining, because yeah, as we know, the Pocket 3 is not waterproof. And there you have it, your settings to create a dreamy, motion blurry time lapse or motion lapse with the Pocket 3.